Welcome into Jets Nation Radio, sponsored by Betway. Make sure you like and subscribe to Jets Nation Radio so you never miss a podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome into Jets Nation Radio. I'm Angus Hout, joined this week by Ray Howe. Before we get to you, Ray, I just got to shout out our good friends at Betway. Be sure to check out the latest NHL odds with online sportsbook Betway. Ray, how you doing this week?
Pretty good. A lot of kind of playoff games going on with some long games. So definitely some entertaining hockey to be still playing right now in the NHL.
Oh man, that was 2 a.m. to finish up, and Matty Tkachuk, like, that dude is on a tear. Like, he didn't do much that game, but he won both of them. So look at that guy go.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Florida's a dark horse.
they were the dark horse. I wish it was the Jets that
Yeah,
decided to
yeah.
pull that off, to be the 8th seed and pull it all off. But yeah, good for Florida. I mean, Paul Maurice just going with it and embracing. So Southern hockey, I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And if Southern hockey gets some more people into the game and grows the game, I'm all for it.
I'm all in. The only thing is, like, Arizona's down, like, Jets 1.0. It's not having a great time. They
Yeah.
yeah, I feel bad for Arizona fans. Like, they're so easy to rip on, but those guys are so loyal. They get bullied day in and day out, and they're still kicking around. So I hope that they find a home for Arizona sooner rather than later, and I hope they keep it in state. But
Yeah. I think it's just the easy one to rip on, but like I think that like for how much time they've invested into the Coyotes in Arizona, I think it's just I don't think it's realistic to move them. But like I understand moving them could be good, but I feel like expansion to one of the team or like the places that keeps getting linked with the Coyotes would be better than just relocating them altogether.
yeah, well, I mean, like, how many times have they moved in the last, like, since their inception? Like, they've had 3 different homes in 26 years. So, like, they haven't had a fair shot.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, and I mean, Jets 1.0 wasn't looking, I don't know what it actually looked like. I haven't even looked at that roster, so I can't say anything about it, but my recollection was they weren't doing too hot anyways. So, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if Arizona and Phoenix ever got a fair shake at it, and I hope that, yeah, they rebound, because I don't want to see anyone go to Houston just yet. I would like to see a Houston team, or Salt Lake City would be kind of cool. That's a
Yeah.
gorgeous looking city. I'm looking at photos all week. I'm like, yeah, Salt Lake City does deserve a hockey team. So
Yeah.
yeah, is there anywhere that if they were to move outside of Arizona, where do you think?
I think Houston's a good market, just like
Yeah.
with how big the city is. Like, I think that they have to look at like just like appealing to a lot of people. And Houston is like, I think one of the biggest cities in America that doesn't have an NHL team. So appealing to those people that wouldn't even like kind of like Seattle in that way, where like the team doesn't have like that much of an NHL kind of like fan base or something like that, and you put it into a market and it could spark a lot of new fans in these southern areas.
You could. Now, this is my lack of knowledge about other sports in Houston, but don't they also already have 4 big sports teams in the
Uh,
Mavericks? I
then yeah, there's the I know there's the Houston Astros.
Astros, they've got an NFL team, the Houston Texans or something. I can't tell you. This is how ignorant I
Yeah.
am. Someone from Houston, give me a call and tell me about your sports teams, because I don't know anything, and Googling things is just too hard. But you know what? Let's just look at it. Houston sports teams. Got
Okay.
the Texans, they've got the Rockets, the Astros, the Roughnecks, and they've got a couple of a couple of soccer teams. Like, they've got a deep roster of teams
Yeah.
there. Like, are you really going to be able to build as much of a market as you think you'd be able to in Houston? Like,
Uh,
it might be a bit
it's
of a moot point, just, looking
yeah.
how much sports is already down there. I know it's like, what, I think it's a $5 million or a 5 million person city, but
Yeah, it's I think like Houston is definitely like it has the highest population, but I definitely don't think that it's the best fit like for a hockey market. But I think that like you
yeah, well,
can't.
what is a
undervalue.
hockey market at this point? Your team just has to win. Look at
Yeah,
Florida and Carolina right now. Like Carolina's
yeah,
just been
definitely.
buzzing.
Yeah, I think just like I don't think that the population or like the amount of people you can appeal to can be understated. Like to be able to be an effective expansion team or just an effective team, to be honest, like you have to be able to fill up seats and be able to kind of create atmosphere that people want to go to. So I think that having it in Houston, even though that they have so much competition in different sports teams, that they're really able to create like a team that can bring in a lot of different people and basically drive up kind of the amount of people that could be interested in hockey down in Texas.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad location, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to be hopeful, but stay in Arizona. I want to continue to make fun of those guys, but a little bit more hardy. But
Yeah, keep
yeah,
Arizona and Arizona, but then just expand to Houston and Salt Lake City.
yeah. I mean, 34, make it happen there, Gary. You know what? The more and more I'm hearing about Gary Bettman, it sounds like he has been vilified for really no reason. I mean, the lockout sucked, but he saved the Oilers. I'm sure he would have tried a lot harder to save the Winnipeg Jets. But just like I've been listening to these series, like Urinating Tree on YouTube, and just like did the series of teams that went under. So the Thrashers is the one that came to mind. It's like it was just bad ownership and general management, general managers that kind of screwed that team over. That screwed over Arizona. That screwed over the Jets 1.0. It's just incompetence. It's not a lack of fans wanting it, and even the Oakland A's as of right now. I feel for those teams. It's like it's not the fans' faults. It's the owner's fault and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I really, yeah. Gary Bettman isn't as bad as we think he is. He still kind of sucks, though. Don't think I'm just,
Yeah.
yeah, hoping Gary hears this where I praise him. So great way to start the podcast off. We just did not talk about what we discussed 3 minutes before we got going. So let's hop into your questions because dang it, you've been doing the questions the last 2 weeks. They are just so good. I love them. July 1st extensions are available for those that have 1 year left. What players get extensions who is left without?
I think that the number one player that they have to kind of look at an extension is Cole Perfetti.
Yeah.
Because with how young he is, like look at how Scheifele's deal worked out, where he was really young and then signed this long-term deal, and it's still in effect right now. So I think that if like almost everyone on the team can almost go without an extension or kind of that type of certainty into the future because you could always trade them, but getting Perfetti locked up long term to a deal that could be a steal of a contract in like 4 or 5 years, I think is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not often do those contracts look really bad. Like, I mean, those contracts go hit and miss, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's been some guys that you sign in, like Leon Draisaitl, $8 million for that guy, sexy numbers, and Mark Scheifele, as you said too, $6 million for that guy. What was Nate McKinnon? $6 million too?
Yeah.
Five? Like, those ones look amazing when they work out, but you also got to remember the pressure that you're putting on a guy like
Yeah.
Cole Perfetti. Um, I think Cole Perfetti waits until the end of his year next year.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to try to sign him, but it could also
Yeah.
work out where you pay him $5 million and he ends up being kind of met or constantly injured. So I, yeah, it'd be cool to get him signed early on, but I think that they're going to wait until we can get either a full season out of Cole Perfetti or a near full season out of
Yeah.
Cole Perfetti. You mentioned here Scheifele, the Dillons, Hellebuyck, Niederreiter, Wheeler, and as well. Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the Dillons is going to be gone this
Yeah.
summer. And the other Dillon needs to be re-signed. And that's Dylan DeMello and Brennan Dillon. Dylan Sandberg, that dude is going to be a Winnipeg Jet and going to be a successful Winnipeg Jet. We're going to be
Yeah.
talking Josh Morrissey, Dylan Sandberg as the two is like the best pairing in hockey in
Yeah.
like 3 years. But I think that you're probably going to hold on to Dylan DeMello over Brennan Dillon.
Yeah, I think that even though both of them are really good, and I don't want to say that just because one is a right shot that it affects the decision, but when the Jets only have two right shot defensemen on the team, I think it becomes more of a clear decision that DeMello is the more important aspect to this team.
Yeah,
So
and
I
he's
think Brendan Dillon could definitely be one guy that gets explored through the trade market.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's not a lot of guys on the trade market, and there's teams want big, mean guys. And Brandon Dillon, bless his heart, he's a great player, and I love him on this team. And I, would love to see him just finish his career with the Jets, but it's probably not going to happen. So yeah, you can
Yeah.
ship him off and get huge return for him. Maybe not like first round huge, but like you get a pretty good sizable return for a
Yeah.
guy like Brandon Dillon.
Yeah, and
Um,
even with that trade too, like then you're opening up the ability to play someone like Declan Chisholm, who we talked about in last week's podcast, to get more NHL minutes, and then you're just allowing younger and younger people to get more minutes. So as we saw this year, Sandberg was mainly on that third pair with Schmidt this year.
mhm.
So if we trade Dylan at some point next year, that allows someone like Sandberg to get more elevated minutes into the top four and see what he can bring at that level of play.
Well, how much does Leon go? Okay, I know I always mispronounce this guy. Gawanke? Is that how you say his
Gonka,
name? That guy.
think it's Gonka, yeah.
Gonka. Gawanka? Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Either way, he was talking basically just saying like he he worked his ass off all year and didn't even get a
Yeah.
sniff in the NHL. Like, do you think moving on from a Brandon Dillon or a Nate Schmidt, Neil Pionk is going to help loosen up that logjam, and maybe we can stop losing guys that are those undiscovered gems?
Yeah, I think that like with that, like there's a lot of young people in the AHL that definitely deserve to get a shot. Not even just on the in the Jet system, but there's a lot of people in the AHL that deserve to get a look into the NHL and don't often get that chance. So being able to give that player a chance, and that could be the difference between seeing that this guy could be like a future part of like your long-term future of the team versus you don't give him that chance and you just forever as an AHL player. Like those kind of game differences can be the difference between someone making like millions of dollars and then over 10 millions of dollars. So it's like it's very important to be able to give these guys a chance. Like we saw with Kovacevic and with Declan Chisholm, they got some games and they didn't look bad. They weren't very detrimental to the team's offense or defense, but they weren't very impact players. But that also comes with how many minutes they got. So being able to give these guys a look and give them a chance is very important to ensuring that you keep the players, but also keep a flow of younger people that are hungry to get earn those minutes as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it a few times where it's like fans just kind of want to see guys who legitimately want to try. Like sometimes it sucks when you pay to, $100 to go see a team lose, but darn it, those boys tried, game in and game out. But you almost wonder if I guess if people wanted to see Manitoba Moose, they would go pay to go see the
Yeah.
Manitoba Moose. So never mind. I'm not defending that. That's nonsense. Go pay to see the
Yeah.
Moose.
I would say that the difference is we saw that in the NHL we had about eight NHL defensemen carried on the roster with Stanley and Capobianco as the two extras. So I think that the Jets ultimately decided to almost sacrifice Gonka and not giving him those NHL minutes to not lose someone like Capobianco to waivers and stuff like that. So it's really like sad to see Gonka. He signed in the DEL for 4 years. So it's kind of like a Christian Vesalainen where you see this asset that you have and just never got really a chance at being more than it's kind of different for Vesalainen where he was able to get games and was given a shot to kind of
But he also got what,
get
like 4.5 minutes a
yeah,
night
he
under
was not
Pomo.
getting yeah, he definitely wasn't getting the ice time to kind of showcase what he could bring. So I think that the Jets really need to look at how they manage these younger on the cusp guys that could definitely provide an impact at some level of play, but they just need to kind of allow for these younger guys to get that opportunity, and it's really unfortunate that a lot of them don't.
Well, and especially when you're in the same city, and I don't know what his contract status was, but I thought he was a two-way kind of a guy, so he could
Yeah,
go up and down on and off waivers. Like I'm sure that would make guys
yeah,
just days, and you make like 10 times the money just even being under an NHL contract. So like
yeah.
swap him out. Did you see his quote that he Gawanke? I'm just gonna mispronounce his name. I don't care at this point.
Just call him Leon.
Leon, did you see Leon's
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, I
Like,
did.
yeah, let's like, and I love the end of it there, especially when I see who gets a chance. Like, he is calling out some players that he doesn't think are nearly as talented. And I mean, he's a little bit right.
Yeah,
Especially like, yeah, well, I guess he's kind of right, but also like Logan Stanley was on a one-way contract. So you can't really call him out and be like, well, look at this. Like, sorry, man, you were drafted in the 5th round. Like, that's just the nature of the
yeah,
beast. And it's unfortunate, but I understand the frustration too, because like what was he,
yeah,
the top scoring defenseman for the Moose this year? Or like in the
yeah. I think he set an all-time record in Moose with goals, and I think he was the highest scoring Moose, but I could be wrong. It could be Chisholm. But I
yeah.
think that it just shows that I think this situation with Gonka really showcases the Jets log jam at the defense position more than ever, because you see this guy who's a young 23-year-old right-handy, someone that could be very useful as like a bottom pair in the future, but you piss it away because you're keeping Capobianco and players like that on the NHL roster. So it's like, sure, you would love to get him into a game or two to kind of be like, hey, we see that you're doing really good in the AHL. Here's your kind of your moment to kind of get that NHL game, or just kind of like to have that experience. But they just never were able to give him that chance. And I think that he really took that personally.
That's fair. Also, don't be ripping on Kyle Capobianco. That dude had
Yeah.
a contract that was signed 2 years. You take that money. And I mean, he was a good 7th defenseman. I wish he had seen more ice time, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest with you. Like we all kind of suspected Neil Pionk was hurt, and I think it was confirmed that he was, playing through a mild injury. Like I wish Capobianco played over top of Neil Pionk for a few games just to, you know, get him rested. But yeah, like and Capobianco scored for us a few times. Like he wasn't Eric
Yeah.
Carlson, but he did what he needed to do. And I just think that guy deserves some more time on the ice. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna take your Capobianco slander and
Yeah.
dunk on it.
I'm not saying I probably shouldn't have said that about Capobianco. Like he was better than Leon Gawanke. Like he's more, and like he's had NHL games
Yep.
and he's had more success throughout his career. But I think the problem is like it just showcases that there's so many players that deserve to get a chance at the NHL, but there's only a finite amount of spots. Like
Yeah.
you can't give everyone the same chance. Like if you're giving Bianca a chance, then you're basically limiting that away from Capobianco. And then if you do that, then you're basically showing to Logan Stanley, like, hey, this guy's in the AHL and he's playing above you. Like, I think that like you're almost like you can't have a win situation where
Yeah.
you call up Gionk and then they'll be like, why is Gonk playing when I've been sitting in the press box for 20 some games and I don't get that game. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate where it just
Just
showcases that logjam.
yeah. Oh yeah, it really does. And I mean, like it's a long log jam. He was just another piece to go in that log jam, because it's what, 3 of them have gone or have asked for a trade. 4 of them asked for a trade or have left. Like it's just we could talk about this till the cows come home. It's just simply like I said, it's the nature of the beast. It's one of those times where it's just like, sorry guys, there are guys that are just simply better than you, and I wish we had time for you, but
Yeah.
the NHL isn't a developmental league. Sorry, can I have one?
Yeah.
Hey, you can't eat the cord. You dweeb. Sorry. Um, he thinks it's a good snack. So, um, okay, Blake Wheeler. We all know the story of him getting the captaincy removed. He's got one last year on his contract. Do you see him getting traded or even bought out?
I think that Wheeler is a really interesting case because, like, going into the year, we saw a lot of optimism with him being removed as the captain and being like, okay, we're going to see some change. We're going to see some new leadership. And I don't think that was exactly the case where in the end of season meetings and interviews, there's a lot of people saying, like, yeah, Blake Wheeler is kind of the pseudo captain of this team still. And it's like, that wasn't really the point of him taking or being taken away the captaincy. Like, you want to see people look to new guys as leadership. So I think that Wheeler is a guy where you almost have to move him to see that kind of change in leadership within the team. And we all know that his cap hit and age is kind of undesirable. I think he's turning 38 years old this off season.
37.
And he 37, 30. Okay.
Yeah,
But
it's old.
it's still a grandpa. And his cap hit's like 8.2 million. So it's like who would really realistically want to take on that kind of cap hit there, as well as him having the 5 team no trade list. So I think that Wheeler as an option for many teams is just like there's not a lot of options where you can trade him to where the team wouldn't want retained salary or wouldn't even like may want to be compensated for taking him on. So I think that if Wheeler is absolutely like no place where he's willing to go or be traded, I think the Jets realistically have to actually consider buying him out.
Well, but the Jets in their time of being here in Winnipeg have only, I believe, only bought out one contract, and I was scratching my brain for this one. I think it was only Mark Stewart, and he had like a super low contract. Like I think it was a league min, maybe $1.5 million. But besides that, like the Jets have never done that. And I know that you sent me the number. It was $2.5 million to buy out Wheeler for the
Yeah,
next 2 years.
yeah.
So
So you save a lot
maybe
of cap this year though too.
you do. You really do. And I mean, like with what could happen with the Jets, I mean, give yourself as much room. But it's also this free agency kind of sucks. And you
Yeah.
don't want to build your team in free agency, especially in this city. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think one positive thing from buying out Wheeler is you do get around $6 million in cap space. And depending on the direction of the Jets, we saw this with Calgary and Montreal, where Calgary paid a first round pick to trade away Sean Monahan. And look at how like he was doing pretty well for Montreal before he got injured, but ultimately his injuries caught back up with him. You could
Yeah.
almost try to do something where you buy out Wheeler and then you try to take on cap for compensation, and then you're basically getting that cap space from buying out Wheeler. Sure, you have to pay the 2.75 million the next year, but you can use that cap space and like with how many teams are cap strapped, $6 million in cap space. That's like you could take on like
Huge.
Mikhail Granlund, like you can take on like a pretty hefty contract for a year or two, and then you just all the assets that you could accumulate from that. So I would entertain trading Wheeler definitely, but not like it's not guaranteed that he can move.
No, and yeah, you got that trade clause as well. Like it's a whole sticky mess to move that guy. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like he's still the pseudo captain. And I remember when I was watching the end of season pressers there, the only guy that didn't seem to buy into the Wheeler nonsense was Mason Appleton.
Yeah.
Which I just kind of thought was funny. I was like, yeah, that's the one guy that maybe because he was gone and came back, he just kind of saw the writing on the wall. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Like there is that, but yeah, you have to see him gone. Like I talked about it on TikTok this last week, where it's like, Wheeler and Shifley, like the fact that Wheeler's still what a 60-point guy, like the dude's
Yeah.
crushing it at his age. You would love to have a guy like that on your team, but I think Wheeler and Shifley like feed off of each other, and they're just those two knobs at work or school or whatever you end up doing. You're just like, yeah, these guys are great on paper, but have you ever worked with them? Because God, they suck.
Yeah, and like even that too, like that's just another reason why Wheeler might not be able to be traded because with that cap hit, with the trade clause, and then a team that's acquiring him, looking at the whole situation, looking being like, okay, this guy is the captain for a long time, got stripped of the captain, and then teams still saw him as a captain, and with all the locker room issues perceived on the team, how much is that reflected on Wheeler? And do you want to bring that into your team going forward for a year? It's like there's a lot of different options that teams need to look at, and a lot of them aren't looking good for acquiring Wheeler. And it might be just trading Wheeler at like 50% and you get like maybe like a fourth round pick back or something like that. Like the return for Wheeler is definitely going to be like it's almost better if you retain on him and get like a fourth round pick back just
Well,
so you
you think
can
that
get
retained Wheeler is still only worth a fourth round pick? I
it's a
think like a 50%, which never happens in the NHL, by the way, but a 50% retention on Wheeler, holy, I think you could swindle someone, especially like a team like Boston. You're like, listen, give us Taylor Hall. We'll give you a retained Blake Wheeler. Like, I think they would just be jumping at that. Again,
yeah, that
hypothetical, but
like that could work, but it's like again, you have to look at there's only five teams that Wheeler would accept a trade to. So he could realistically make the teams all teams that have no cap space or teams that would not trade for him, say like Arizona or something like that, and just like then you just can't move him at all because all the teams that he's willing to go to either doesn't have the cap for him or doesn't have the desire to even trade for him. So it's like you're almost like stuck with him for a year. So you either have to play out the year of a contract where he's basically like still seen as the captain when he really shouldn't be. So I think that something needs to happen with Wheeler. I don't know what needs to happen, but something needs to change.
yeah, 100%. I am in total agreement with you. I I really wish that we could send him off in a better light, but
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's the last standing member of
Thrashers.
of the Thrashers, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you kind of want to see the guy retire with us, but like times have changed, man, and that guy just isn't built for this team anymore. Um, Also, sorry, it popped into my head, but Kyle Connor's been looked at by by St. Louis. Like, I really hope that trade doesn't happen. Like an in division trade.
Yeah.
Oh man, like whoever's reporting on that one can kick rocks. And I saw Clayton Keller was also in the talks for St. Louis. Like, come on, who's making this stuff up? Like, use a little bit of your head, right?
Yeah, and I think that like with like even entertaining a trade with Kyle Connor, like I like he's like the probably the most important forward to the team when he's on his game. And we saw that last year when he scored 47 goals. Like this guy could be a 50 goal scorer and
Yeah.
he's on a great contract for the next 3 years after this year. So it's like if you're trading Connor, there is almost no way that you are going to get a deal where you're gonna like in 5 years say like, oh yeah, we traded Kyle Connor, but we got the better end of the deal. Like it's very hard to kind of like say that when Kyle Connor could go to St. Louis or something like that and he immediately scores 50 goals and just looks amazing.
Yeah, and especially like, and guys love to go on revenge tours too. So you know that there 16 of those goals would have been all against the Jets. So yeah, whoever's putting out like the quote unquote insiders that aren't Elliot Friedman and Frank Saravalli, I'm just like, yeah, I gotta stop believing anything you guys say. Like even Connor Hellebuyck to the Rangers, like, come on, you guys, really? Is this what we're shooting for here? Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense on paper.
Yeah.
Unless we're getting Igor back, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's definitely a lot of rumors out there that like is more speculation on kind of what teams need and not really kind of thinking about the kind of just like what would need to be like in a deal. So it's like sure there might be like a fit with a certain team, but then when you even just do some like entry level looking at oh what does the cap look like? What does this team have to trade? It's like you realize that the trade that seemed like was just kind of like oh it would work. It's just like doesn't really even make sense for either team.
Yeah. Oh, not yeah, exactly. So I just gotta stop looking at Puck Empire and being like, yeah, it's gonna happen. uh, but yeah, no, I just there's core pieces of this team that won't get moved, and people are just trying to push them out. Kyle Connor is has to be one of those pieces that you don't see leaving until probably the final year of his contract.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not him leaving and him staying as a Jet for the entire duration of his career, but we can
Yeah,
only hope.
yeah, I think that's just kind of the fact of being a Winnipeg Jets fan is you just got to watch guys come and go and they're going to be successful elsewhere. And that's why I kind of get cold towards guys because it's like, you all leave us. Patrick Laine,
Yeah.
who's, I mean, if Paul Maurice wins the cup, man, I am not excited to wear that youth jersey for a year straight. We were talking in our group chat, and it's like I was making just wild bets because Paul Maurice just sucks and is destroying my soul. um, uh, what was it? The Jets are also selling jerseys for 50% off with
Yeah.
Wheeler and Scheifele, but there was Patrick Laine youth jerseys for sale for $11. So I made a bad bet. So if you see me cruising around Winnipeg with a Pat Laine jersey on, please don't laugh too hard. Oh, Connor Hellebuyck. He's played 485 games for the Jets dating back to 2015-16. If he's traded at any point, how big of an impact is this going to be on the team? It's going to be huge, man. That's going to be like, that's the meteor hitting the earth and killing the dinosaurs. It can either bring in a new era of excellence or we can have nothing but a wasteland desert. And Kevin Cheveldayoff hasn't lost many trades. I'm going to say that he's been less than successful, but still came away pretty good with both the Kevin Hayes and the Logan Stanley trade. So, or the pick to get Logan Stanley trade. I would like to believe that Kevin Cheveldayoff has this handled and that we're going to see a new era that is great for the Jets. But, boy, it's going to be a little bit scary.
Yeah, Hellebuyck is one of those guys where like every single year we could probably be on this podcast and say if we didn't have Hellebuyck that week, we would be losing all three of those games. So it's like the difference that Hellebuyck makes on this team. Like we were finished like 18th in the league or 19th in the league. And without Hellebuyck, I think we're probably a top or a bottom 10 team. So it's like the amount of impact he has on the team. And like, look, he's been nominated for the Vezina 3 times in the past 6 years, and he's won a Vezina. So it's like the amount of impact he's had on this team has been the greatest since he's been with the Jets. Like for every player in the Jets, like I think he's the most important player the Jets have had just in 2 point or since relocating back to Winnipeg from Atlanta. Like there has not been a player that has been this important to the team's success in the Jets' history so far from 2011-12 seasons. Like the amount of impact he has simply cannot be put into words. Like having him on your team, it's like, oh, we don't have to worry about who our goalie is. Like you don't need to worry about, oh, why are we starting this player instead of him? It's like Hellebuyck is a goalie that doesn't come like it's hard to put into words with how the rumors of him being gone, like being in trade rumors and stuff like that. It's unfathomable to see not having him on your team.
Yo, man, it's incredible that the Jets would be such a bad team without Connor Hellebuyck. And I talked about him this weekend. People were like, "Well, look what he did in the playoffs. He was AHL quality." But if you looking into the last 16 games going into the playoffs, like what was Connor Hellebuyck's record? Maybe it was 13 games, but it was an unreal record where he's just putting up stupid numbers, and it was the reason the Jets snuck in essentially.
And like, and you look at the games that he had to win. Like there was games where he was playing back-to-back games, and like in today's NHL, that's like almost unseen where a goalie goes into a game on like a Friday night against the team, and then the next day on Saturday is like, yeah, I'm gonna play that game too. It's like I think Hellebuyck is like he's like first in probably saves and starts and just like
I think the
like
only
a
one
lot of those stats since 2017, 2018. So it's like the amount of impact that he has on the team's success is probably the most out of any goalie in the league. And it's just like that's why in a trade for if Hellebuyck's being traded, like you have to expect like we see that goalies don't tend to get as big of a return in trades than players do, but I don't think it's far off to say that Hellebuyck could set a new record for what a goalie goes for in trade just because of how impactful he is as a goalie and him having a Vezina and being able to start over 60 games a year. It's like that is not something that is common in the NHL and definitely not common while also having that many Vezina nominations.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw an extend trade with Connor Hellebuyck. Somebody's like, hey, like, get the deal done with us, and then we'll make the big trade, and it could be, a monster. Who would that trade be with? I don't know. I genuinely see Buffalo taking that
Yeah.
approach, but I could also see Connor Hellebuyck kind of be like, no, I'm not going to Buffalo, because they would run him through the exact same gambit that Winnipeg has, where it's like, this is a playoff team when Connor Hellebuyck is your goaltender.
Yeah.
But also, I
I
wouldn't
think
know.
Buffalo is a good team though, because with their goalies are very young. Like they have Levi. Levi looked like a really good goalie at the end of the year, but he's also 21 years old. Like he's
Yep.
seen as their goalie of the future, but you can't really rush that guy into being a full-time NHL starter. So I think that and you can't undermine how long they've been out of the playoffs. Like 12 years is a long time for any team to be constantly out of the playoffs, constantly never having that kind of extra excitement at the end of the season. So I think that Buffalo has the most to gain from trading for Connor Hellebuyck.
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, that's why I said them. And like, I would love to see Devin Levi come back to Winnipeg if that was the trade package, was, a bunch of guys, and Devin Levi would be on the top of my list of guys to come back this way. Um, but we'll see what
I
happens.
personally do. So I would personally take back Jukka-Pekka Luukkonen and get some better first round picks or something like that. And but
Yeah,
that may just be me.
that might just be you. I mean, bring back Eric Comrie, the guy who let 10 goals in this year. um, yeah, sorry, I was trying to find some Connor Hellebuyck deep stats just to see stuff, but the internet sucks, so I'm only getting goals against average and the stuff that you can find on NHL.com. Come on, internet, be better, work in my favor. Um, so if Connor Hellebuyck is gone, we've said Devin Levi. Is there anyone else that you would like for the Jets to potentially target if Connor Hellebuyck is gone, or who do you think they would target?
I think that in a Connor Hellebuyck trade, they're obviously probably going to try to get back like a young or kind of like an NHL goalie in that trade. So there would be kind of like a swap there. But I also think that the Jets would probably be looking for like a bargain kind of player that wouldn't be kind of seen as like a starter or something like that. So I think that like even though this goalie has had injury issues in the past, I think that Mackenzie Blackwood would actually be kind of a goalie that the Jets could take a risk on, where he might not be qualified by the New Jersey Devils because his qualifying offers in the 3 million range, and they have Vanacek and Schmid in the ahead of him. And he's been a starter in the past. He was a starter for New Jersey for 2 to 3 years, and he had some really good numbers in his first kind of 2 to 3 years there until kind of going through the ankle issues he had. So I think that Mackenzie Blackwood, if you could see a lot of benefit by giving him the time there, but there's definitely risk there. And with how the goalie class this is, with the goalie class this year, there's not a lot of options. So it's not like, and you got to think that a goalie coming here wants to come here or is willing to come here. So someone like Tristan Jarry might be out of the question. Some of these better goalie options. So
Believe in
definitely, I
Big
think,
Save Dave.
yeah, I don't
um,
think Big Save Dave is coming back, but that's just he'll probably will sing that now.
I would love to see David Ridge come back. I also wouldn't be shocked if Arvid Holm or Oskari Salminen
Salmonen, yeah,
come on up, because they didn't have phenomenal seasons with the Moose, but like one of them has to have their time because like they're getting up there where see what you got.
Yeah. I think that both of those goalies could be like the third goalie, like, and like with Blackwood, like that. I think that goalie would provide really good. Like he's had starter experience, so you could see a lot of gain from that being him being able to play more games than someone like Riddick or something like that.
Yep.
But then you're also covered where if he's injured, which he most likely will be, kind of like almost like Matt Murray, where you don't know if he's going to be healthy or not. But then if that happens, then you're able to call up one of those two goalies, and then you kind of have like a three goalie rotation between Blackwood, someone you get in the Hellebuyck trade, and then one of Salmonen or Holm.
Oh, see, and I struggle with bringing in a guy in like Mackenzie Blackwood. Like ankle injuries are the ones that get me. Ryan Whitney back in the day when the Oilers traded for him had ankle injuries and issues for years and years. And the Oilers like, no big deal, it'll be fine. And the dude like sat so much. So
Yeah.
I ankle injuries, like I personally deal with a knee injury. It sucks, but ankle injuries I think are 1,000 times worse, especially in the game of hockey. So that's where I'm
Yeah,
going
it
to
might be a
stand on
heel
that.
injury. I don't know exactly
But
what his.
anything right
Yeah,
on the foot down there, like
yeah,
that's the one.
it's going to be tough, but
It's going to be
I think
tough.
it's a risk that the Jets really need to take with him, where he's shown that he's been a starter before, so there's not a lot of goalie options available. So giving him like a 1 year deal at like $2 million or something like that, like it's not going to cost the Jets a lot of money. And if he's injured or something like that, like you don't need to. It's not like he's a goalie that you're signing for like 5 years. Like you're not going to have that long-term commitment with him. So it's kind of like we sign you for 1 year. If you're good, we can potentially look to you in the future. If not, you may sign for like a backup role. And if we just don't see you in the future, then you can go back to the UFA and try to find another contract there.
Well, depending what the Weiser plan is in Detroit, I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up there and we ended up with Detroit's goaltender, his whose name is blanking on me really hard right
Husso,
now. I think so.
Billy Husso.
Billy Husso could potentially come back. I would hope, like maybe.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of the. Sorry, my bad. I was thinking of the Carolina goaltender that came from Detroit.
Oh, Nedeljkovic.
Yeah, that's the guy I was thinking of. So that
I
would
think
be
he's
a
a UFA this year, so they could always sign him as well as instead of someone like Blackwood.
yeah. Oh yeah. Personally, I'd like to see that guy come because but he also wants to be in Detroit. So you got to fight with that contention. With who wants to be in Detroit? Damn it!
I think that Nedeljkovic would leave if he has a better opportunity with another team, and
Well,
like he's been in the AHL, so it's like
but
I think
his
that
thing was is his like his agent is there, the guy that he trains with is
yeah,
there. That's why he wanted to be in Detroit, was just to be a better
yeah,
goalie.
but does Detroit want him to be there is another thing too.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, well, the Weiser plan seems to be going off track because he still hasn't made the playoffs. Suck it, Stevie Weiserman. Brad Lambert, fantastic WHL playoffs, 26 points in 17 games. Is he going to be a Jet for the full season next year?
okay, so my answer is I don't think he is, but I want him to be. Like with what he's been able to do, I think that he could definitely like we saw it in the preseason this year. Like he was like almost like one of the last cut. Like he was probably like the 12th forward cut or something like that, or not 12, like probably like 15th forward cut. So like he was right there and like he almost earned that 9 game trial in the NHL. And you were always talking about like every single time that there was an injury or something like that, you were always saying, call up our boy Brad Lambert to play those games. So I think that if he puts in a great offseason, building up some strength and stuff like that, and he has a good preseason, I think that he could definitely earn that 9 game trial. And then if he shows that like in that 9 game trial, like say it's like 4 or 5 points in those 9 games and is able to be a good player just all around, I think that he could be that. But being realistic to kind of the players on the team and kind of what's best for his development, I think that all like a pretty safe bet would be to see him fully in with the Manitoba Moose this year for the entire season rather than giving him like that 14 games and sending him down. So
Is he still?
Yeah.
He still gets the 9-game trial. I thought that was only for his 18th year.
I am not sure about that, but
But last
like
year
he
it would
could,
have been he had to 9 games or he's either in
yeah,
or out.
yeah,
Um,
because
yeah,
his contract slid this year, so he still has 3 years on his contract because he was in the CHL this year.
yeah,
So I'm
that's what
not
I
sure
thought.
if he's in the AHL this year, if it counts against his contract.
I
I'd have to look into that. So
I'm pretty sure it does count against his entry level. So uh, that's my knowledge of it. If I'm wrong, well, someone's
I
yelling in
think
their
I think
car.
it depends because I'm pretty sure I was looking at like who gets the entry level slide, just some of the examples. And I think I saw someone on Buffalo, the guy that they drafted slightly before Lambert, who was playing full time in the NHL or the AHL, also had the entry level slide. So if Lambert is able to go down to the AHL and still keep the 3 years of his ELC, I think that's the best course of action. Because then after that you have 3 years of Lambert fully NHL ready and being able to make that bigger impact than he would be probably if he was in the NHL next year. So I think that making sure that Lambert is ready for the NHL is the most important thing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, don't push the guy in too soon. And even
Yeah.
if you only get 2 years of entry level contract with
Yeah.
Lambert in the NHL, like those are still 2 pretty good years. It like by that time we've got Rutger playing full time with the Jets. Like it's gonna be a good young squad where that could be a bit of a menace line for Fetty. Actually, I don't remember what lines or what position all those guys play, but I mean Perfetti, Rutger, and Lambert line, like it
Yeah.
would cause some issues, but I also want to see Rutger McGroarty play with Brad or with Lowry a lot because that would be a big menace line.
Yeah. Also with having Lambert in the AHL, we also saw this with having Nikita Chibrikov sign with the Jets this offseason, where he signed for 3 years in the AHL. So and having Chibrikov Lambert and say like if Limoges signs a 1 year deal to play in the AHL again, like that line with the amount of offense they would be able to create, I think could be very dangerous with the Moose. So I think that Lambert and the AHL would be best for his development, but I think it would also benefit the players he's playing with so he can build up that chemistry. So when he's in the NHL, when you have someone like Chibrikov coming in, you'd be like, oh, they played really good together with the Moose. Let's see this in the NHL and see how it works as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I won't be shocked if he's in the AHL and just crushing it. I also won't be shocked if he's in the NHL and maybe
Yeah.
not crushing it, but definitely looking at some success. And
I just can't see Seattle back as an option next
no, I
year,
think
like with
he's
how good he's played.
yeah, I know that he won't be too old for it, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see the Jets being like, oh yeah, go play for Seattle again and absolutely crush the 16-year-olds in that league because it
Yeah.
would not benefit him in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, like I hope that he hits the benches and goes hard over the next couple of months and maybe doesn't bulk up too much where he's uncomfortable with the extra 10
Yeah.
pounds, but where he's able to push guys around and not take nonsense from anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
smaller guys, they have to play a little bit more feisty and they have to be stronger than their peers. So good luck to them. We'll finish up with Nino Niederreiter getting stepped on in the World Championships here. Valino, is that the guy's name? He
Yeah,
got a
Joe
five.
Velino.
Yeah, plays for Detroit. I hadn't heard of him
Yeah.
before this, so I think he's just a big old scrub. Uh, 5 game suspension, fair, but also
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd kind of lifetime suspension from any double IHF. Like that's some
Yeah.
sketchy nonsense.
Yeah, I think that Joe Velino, like he was the first, or like he was or gifted the exceptional status in the QMJHL. So
Oh,
like he
that
was that
guy.
guy. So like he's been around the league and like he's definitely not lived up to kind of that exceptional status kind of gift that he was at like 15, 16 years old. And to be given the shot to play for Canada in the World Championship, like like for him, like that should be like an honor and to basically come out with a play like this where it's a non-hockey play where you're stepping on someone's ankle, like that could seriously injure them and affect them for the rest of their career and affect their like the ability for them to earn an extra contract. Like they could seriously injure themselves, and that would be on him. And like we can't have that in this game. And I think this compares to all the non-hockey plays that we've seen in the playoffs where sure the players are getting suspensions, but like player safety, like they're like obviously the message isn't coming across where players are still going for these plays that could seriously affect other players' longevity playing hockey.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah, that was goonish at the best of times and unacceptable. And Evander Kane talked about it, where it's like, you need to have hockey fights just simply because some of these guys are total knobs that think they can step on a guy with a knife. Like, unbelievable. And yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago where it's like, that sucks that you have to put enforcers on the ice who are going to have 10 less years on average of life than a guy that doesn't do this because some little punk ass rat wants to step on a guy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that was really like noble of Nina Ryder, where he's like, yeah, this doesn't belong in the game and stuff like that. And he ultimately got the penalty out of this situation,
right?
but Valino got a 5 game suspension. So you got to think like, how does Valino not get a call during that scrum? And then Nino like, hey, like I don't appreciate you going and doing that to me. Like that is such a dangerous play. And then I'm not sure if you've seen the clip, but Valino kind of flops almost after
Yeah,
getting
he
hit by
flopped
him.
hard.
And then it's like, and then Nino's going away with the penalty. It's like the consistency is just not there at where it needs to be to protect the players that play this game.
Well, so I was actually listening to Paul Stastny on 32 Thoughts yesterday, and he's just like, you know what, refs have a tough go at it
Yeah.
because they have to see everything in real time. So the ref's watching the puck and he's trying to figure out what's going on there, and he might not have seen
Yeah.
that step, or it was just like, oh, that was kind of a weird whatever. So he's got to see that live and then make an adjustment call, and it's hard to do that. Like, I feel for these guys, especially playing or reffing at that speed. But yeah, guys, just that's why you need guys to police the game. That's simply it. Or you need to have guys who are sitting above that can see everything. Because yeah, that should not have happened. And Anita Ryder should not have had to take that into his own hands to have Buddy flop there. So what a
Yeah.
jerk.
And I think that like with Foligno doing that, like he's out for the rest of the IHF tournament here
Yep.
for Canada. But I don't think that like sure it's a suspension, like he's getting repercussions for what he did. But I don't think that like the message is getting across to these players where like yeah, they're getting suspended and like they're getting these repercussions for what they do. But I don't think they ultimately like almost care enough where it's like that's why we see these players like Milan Lucic and like these enforcers get these jobs because ultimately the players know that player safety isn't always going to have their back. Like they're not always going to be protected by player safety where someone cross checks their arm, full intent to injure, and then player safety is like, yeah, this gets like 6 game suspension. It's like, what's the point? Like of player safety if they're not going to protect me as a player. So we need to employ these guys that will protect me if someone goes to karate chop or slash my arm like that. That they got Milan Lucic charging towards them, ready to kick his behind.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like, you do need guys out there to do that kind of stuff because straight up, this is the most dangerous sport. Like, you got guys with basically bulletproof armor on for most of their body. There's a couple exposed spots, and everyone knows where those exposed spots are. So you can hack and slash all you want. If the Nino Rider, if that blade comes down at a different angle, your ankle isn't protected by your shin guard because it protects your shin, and you got to have mobility. So if it goes down, like, yeah, you cut some tendons, you cut a bunch of extra stuff. It's an ugly scene. So yeah, I'm all in on the enforcers. I just wish that the human skull had developed itself a little bit better so we could punch each other. uh, yeah, I hope that player safety gets better. This is garbage. I mean, again, my standard is the Mark Scheifele hit on Evans. Yeah, be safe, guys.
Yeah.
And, please don't target guys. Yeah. That's all I've got this. Actually,
Yeah.
y'all you've got. Let's be honest. You did all the hard work here. So thanks for doing this, Ray.
Yeah.
Had a fantastic week. Hopefully we find Sam Brownell. Apparently he's gone
Yeah.
off and done some stuff. I've heard a rumor that he may be moving to Winnipeg. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was a rumor. Also, be sure to check out the latest NHL odds with online sportsbook Betway. I mean, they've got NHL odds going on right now, and once the NHL's over, CFL betting. Come on, boys and girls, get into that CFL betting. I don't know. I don't have sports. I don't have sports. Our friends at Betway, because we live in Manitoba. I live in Manitoba. You can play. So, Ray, who's your favorite? Do you watch the CFL? What's it like out in Ontario?
I don't personally watch the CFL, but like kind of like it's really different. Like it's definitely entertaining, but the Blue Bombers definitely are a good CFL team and they've won some recent championships.
Oh,
so
heck yeah,
seeing them win is definitely kind of cool to see.
What's with your love of Winnipeg? You're so strange for
Well,
an
it's like
Ontarian.
I'm supporting the Jets, and then it's like if the Jets don't succeed and stuff like that, it's like when you see the Blue Bombers get that success, you're like, oh, cool. Like it's not just the Jets that kind of struggle.
Listen, travel Manitoba, travel Winnipeg, call Ray up. He needs to be the new spokesperson. He's an Ontarian who thinks Winnipeg is cool. Like we got to have a. Honestly, this city's so weird that if they heard this, I'm sure that the Winnipeg Sun would call you up and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on the city? They get so excited when people like this place. So we appreciate that. Ray, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me at ray.how on Instagram. And if you have any questions that you want to have on the podcast, you can always send them my way. I did most of the questions this week. So having some different questions from the listeners would be great to kind of get your voice in on the podcast.
Yeah. Mailbag, that stuff. You can send it to the Jets Nation accounts. You can send it to Ray. Send it to Ray because he'll word it in a way that's really cool and actually makes sense. So do that. And follow Ray. And Brad Lambert is him. Check out jetsnation.ca. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe and all that good jazz. Follow me, Angus Hout. Have yourself a great week. Enjoy the rest of the May 2-4 weekend, whatever you're up to there, Ray. And I'll talk to you again next Sunday.
Yep. See you then.
Peace. Go Jets, go.